Hey, have you ever wondered what perk is the best perk in MM2? Well, good news for you. Today we'll be ranking all MM2 perks. I got every perk in Roblox MM2 and tried each one of them out to see which ones are the most overpowered and which ones are the worst of the bunch. Stick around. Let's get into it.
Yeah, here it comes. Let's go.
Fine. If you don't understand how footsteps works, then I'm guessing you're very new to MM2. Footsteps allows you to see where other players have walked. You can use this to track them down. This perk is actually very good for smaller maps like House 2 and other maps that are, well, small. This is because the main drawback of footsteps is the fact that you don't get any type of speed boost, and speed is the most important thing as the murderer. But hey, this perk is pretty good at finding people who just started hiding. Footsteps, C tier. It's pretty average. Next one. Ninja is a passive ability that removes all sound from the murderer's kills. In my opinion, Ninja has always been an average perk, but it can actually be pretty overpowered if you use it right. This perk works best on big maps, of course, but it's still a good perk on small maps. Oh, and if you're gonna try killing people with this perk, at least try to stay hidden. You know, maybe it's just me, but leaving a room full of dead bodies is pretty suspicious. Ninja is also going to be a C tier, but it is better than Footsteps. Next one. I'll just say it now, I don't like Sleight. Sleight gives the murderer the ability to throw the knife and get the knife back faster. This perk is highly based on your throwing skill, so I would not recommend getting it unless you're skilled at throwing. By just watching the video, I'm sure you can tell that throwing is not my style, so this perk is completely useless, or almost completely useless for me. Besides that, even if you are skilled at throwing, this perk doesn't provide you with any movement speed boost, so you'll solely rely on your skills. I just don't think the pros outweigh the cons. And that's why Sleight will be going in the D tier, and also because I'm a hater. Next one. Sprint has genuinely got to be one of the most fun perks to use. No one can escape from you. Sprint loans the murderer 3 seconds of a 50% speed boost, and then the murderer is hit with like a 25-30 second cooldown. It sounds like a worse version of Haste, right? No. Sprint is more useful in cases that you need speed more than Haste is. Do you remember that 50% speed boost that I was talking about earlier? Yeah, it's overpowered. In fact, Sprint is 5 times faster than Haste. You rarely see people use this perk. It really is underrated. A situation that this perk would be really useful in is if you're in a peeking battle with the sheriff. Someone running away? Not a problem. You're stuck in a bad spot? Not a problem. Even if the sheriff is wall camping, you can still get them with this perk. I would say the 2 biggest flaws with Sprint is knowing when to use it because you have a long cooldown, and using it on a big map wouldn't work as good as it does on smaller maps. Sprint will be our first S tier since it's such a busted power. On to the next one. Man, using trap makes me feel like I'm smarter than I actually am. This perk gives you 3 bear traps for you to use. These bear traps take 2 seconds to place and are completely invisible to other players, which is low-key overpowered. When someone steps on one of your bear traps, it freezes them for 4 seconds and alerts you. But just know if they have the gun, they can still shoot you. Just like other perks, you gain no speed boost from using this perk, which can lead to a lot of situations where you can't make it to the trap player in time, especially on big maps. If you're planning on using this perk, the best places to put the bear trap is in doorways and maybe hallways, but I like to put it under the gun after I've killed the sheriff. Trap requires quite a bit of skill and is usually only really useful on smaller maps, so I don't recommend getting it unless you have the guts and or the big enough brain to use it. I know I don't. The trap power, in my opinion, is A tier. I can understand if you disagree, but it's just way too overpowered on small maps to put this any lower. I just want to take a quick break to say, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and yeah, no, I'm sure you hear that all the time. The next one's gotta be good though. Gross. Okay, hold on. All jokes aside, this perk actually might be good. Fake gun allows the murderer to make their knife look like their gun for 10 seconds. You can use this to gain trust with other players in order to kill them. It sounds really useful, but it's only really useful if you're on a huge map or on a server with a bunch of people who just follow the sheriff. Also, there's a high risk in using this perk because you could just get shot by the sheriff if you use this perk in front of them. Plus, your trickery is probably not gonna last that long. Gotta be good at tricking people for this one, and because of that, it's going in the F tier. No, I'm not being a hater, I just think that fake gun most of the time is not a good power as the murderer. Feel free to disagree in the comments. Next one. Haste is probably the most popular power in Murder Mystery 2. It gives the murderer a 10% speed boost and is a passive ability, meaning that you will always have that 10% speed boost as the murderer. As I have said before, I believe that speed is the most important thing as the murderer, so I believe that this perk is also very useful. Doesn't matter what type of map, large or small, this perk is pretty useful on all of them. Using Haste, no one can outrun you ever. You will always be faster than them, so most chases won't last long. Just don't get cocky. Haste will be our second S tier. Next up is Ghost. Finally, Ghost, the most hated perk in MM2. People believe it's an overpowered and annoying ability, but is it really? Ghost gives the murderer the ability to give other players miniature heart attacks by turning completely invisible for 5 seconds. This sounds really overpowered, because it is. They can only hear your footsteps, which in MM2 isn't that big of a drawback because, well, they aren't gonna pay attention to your loud feet slamming against the ground. I'm not done yet. 5 seconds of invisibility on mini maps isn't as effective as you think, especially in hallways. Hallways are a ghost user's biggest enemy. I would say if you use this power correctly, it's a really good and almost unstoppable ability. So I'm gonna put Ghost in A tier. Last one. When I was younger, I thought X-Ray was the coolest thing ever. And you know what? I think my opinion still hasn't changed. With this power, you become the Hider Hunter, being able to see through all walls for 5 seconds. I didn't say this for Ghost, but I'll say it now. You may not like cooldowns, but as long as you correctly use your ability, you should be fine. For those who don't understand, that means use it when you need it. The biggest disadvantage of this perk is the fact that you get no other benefits other than being able to see through all walls for 5 seconds. If no one's hiding, then there's not much of a reason to really use it. Even so, I believe that using this perk is never a bad decision. X-Ray is going to be B tier, and this is my tier list. Tell me if you disagree or agree in the comments. If I forgot anything, you can leave that there too. These videos take a lot of effort to make, so please like and subscribe to feed my ego.
Kyle,
Yeah.
English or Spanish?
No!